Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. It's time to talk about something that shows up on this channel, well, pretty fairly often, that doesn't get enough attention and love, and we wanted to give a special shout out today to Irnkman's Minis. If you are like me and have very particular discerning tastes towards whatever niche, hobby, and genre of interests you may have, Arkman is one of the very few creators out there who really seems to be operating on the same wavelength as me, and that's both commendable and quite frightening, because I didn't know there were more of us out there. But no, honestly and truly, I've followed Arkman since he first was posting, works in progress back on like Thingiverse back in the day years ago, and it's been really cool to see a creator as an artist grow and continue to show that improvement in creativity. And besides that, does tend to make some really cool stuff based on a lot of cool properties that I also enjoy. So if you're one of those people that really likes a lot of the homages and physical representations of characters or creations that you may have associated with, grown up with, and enjoyed over the years, then I have a feeling you probably are going to like a lot of his stuff. Again, if you tend to have very particular tastes like me. So this figure here should look somewhat familiar to you if you played enough strategy games, and I'm not going to name it just because it should be obvious what emblem might be associated with it. Not like it's on fire or anything, no. Obviously, it's the Black Knight from those games, but I know that certain trigger-happy companies don't appreciate their characters and material showing up in other genres, so we'll leave it at that. But I do like the fact that Arkman has kind of been branching out into a lot more fantasy territory lately. Prior to really getting into the fantasy stuff, as I was mentioning, a man of discerning tastes, we've had plenty of fighting game characters throughout the creation and inception of the whole creator, subscription model. Again, a lot of variety there, obviously. Lately, I know he's been going out and finishing up a lot of the Street Fighter cast. Got a guy all primed up here. For the most part, did a relatively decent job of getting him going. A couple spots I know still need to fix up. Good old Nash to go with him. Personally, I'm really waiting for a lot of the Street Fighter 3 characters, but that's where my era was at its prime when I really enjoyed it. If Street Fighter's not your jam, I know they've spent a lot of time with digital monsters of various sizes and shapes. One thing to be aware of also is that a lot of his figures tend to be a little bit on the larger scale, which for the, over the topness of a lot of these lines and games, that kind of, personally feels pretty appropriate. But just be aware of that if you wanted to, obviously get things more aligned to a very specific scale. But obviously the joy of 3D printing, you can tweak that to your heart's desire. If you want things on a much larger scale, I always got you covered in that regard too. Again, I'm a big fan of a lot of the digital monster stuff. Digimon is something that, while I may have been too old for in its initial inception, I think I was in college when it was first really rolling out, at least the anime and stuff. You best believe that any and every model kit that ever crossed my path, I was absolutely snatching up. Haildramon, I got one of the early Crane Game prize model kits, and I coveted that thing. It was that, and they had a War Greymon, and I painted it, and I just absolutely loved it. So when I saw that Bandai was going back and making the figurized stuff for those, I was absolutely ecstatic. And the best part was, Irnkman already had them covered. So if you are interested or in the market for some 3D printed type, very niche Digimon, he's got you covered in that regard too. One in particular I remember was one of the very first models I ever tried and failed printing from Irnkman was a Jesmon. And it's kind of cool to see where things are today. This is just, besides the fact that my cleaning solution wasn't the best, a very impressive, nicely scaled, nicely sculpted model. It may not be Jesmon X, but, you know, not everybody can be. Again, good sized models. Out of the way, Cloud. And we have a friend over here I was going to mention. In addition to a lot of those digital monsters, I have seen Arkman starting to dabble in bosses from various video games. And that's something that I am always going to be there for and support. I'm not going to mention which game specifically this is from, just because I want to see how obscure your depth of knowledge is in regards to this stuff. I know, and if you think you know, you're more than welcome to put it down there in the comment section. I did recognize it somewhat, and I could not remember, but hey, you know, not all of us can be winners. In addition to that, some other random fighting game stuff that we have seen from them. They've been branching out a little bit away from the typical Japanese stuff with more like Dungeon Fighter Online or DNF Duel. Again, some very nice, and you guys know how I am about like samurai-styled characters. You absolutely can guarantee at some point I'm going to be getting around to those. Sometimes the models tend to be a little over the top in terms of details and poses. That is a 50mm base the guy's on there. But you know what? It works. Personally, I'm hoping that we'll see Irnkman in the near future travel back down the road of Fate stuff. There's a few servants I personally wouldn't mind seeing, as well as a few from Samurai Showdown. So if you have any familiarity with any of this stuff, as always, we have those links below. Arkman's definitely good people. Like I said, they've been starting up with a lot of fantasy stuff as well. If you're not so interested in a lot of the anime/game pop culture references, there's still some of that, but at least it's more in a typical D&D type fashion, where at least if it's been translated through a hardcore anime aesthetic. So if that sounds like something of interest to you, as always, those links are down below. So with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.